Today, we'll discuss these three simple questions on number theory. In particular, it is a question on the remainders. So for the first question, we say when a natural number n greater than 1 is divided by 3, 4 or 5, the remainder is 1. We are asked to find the smallest possible value of n. So let's say we want to try an error based on the first condition. It has a remainder of 1 when it divided by 3, then the number could be equals to 3k plus 1. And it means that it can be equals to a 4, 7, 10, 13, 16, 19, and so on and so forth. And for the second condition, it is 4n plus 1. And it could be equals to 5, 9, 13, 17, 21, and so on and so forth. And for the third condition, it is 5n plus 1. So it can be equal to 6, 11, 16, 21, 26, and so on and so forth. For the first and second line, it has a common value of 13. Second and third condition, it has a common value of 21. And what we can notice here is that 13 is equals to 12 plus 1. And 12 is divisible by 3. And also 12 is divisible by 4. Likewise, for second and third condition, the common value is 21. And 21 is equals to 20 plus 1. Where 20 is congruent to 0 mod 4 and also congruent to 0 mod 5. So it suggests that if we want n to have all these conditions, mathematically we write n as congruent to 1 mod 3 and n congruent to 1 mod 4 and finally n congruent to 1 mod 5. So when you combine all this, then it will just n congruent to 1 the multiplication of 3, 4, 5, because 3, 4, 5 does not have any common divisor other than 1. So 3 times 4 times 5 is equal to 60. And therefore, n is equal to 60 times p plus 1. And since it is greater than 1, the minimum of n will be equal to 61. And this is the answer for this question. Now, this is the second question. It is quite similar. So we'll just write n is congruent to 1 mod 2 and is also congruent to 1 mod 3 and is congruent to 1 mod 4 and is congruent to 1 mod 6 and is congruent to 1 mod 9. We observe that there are more conditions that's needed, because if n is congruent to 1 mod 4, then it means that n must be an odd number, and therefore the first condition is not needed. Likewise, if n is congruent to 1 mod 9, it means that it will be congruent to 1 mod 3. N is congruent to 1 mod 9, it will mean that n is equals to 9k plus 1 for some integer k. And 9k can be written as 3 times 3k plus 1. And we can write as 3 of k1 plus 1, where k1 is equals to 3k. So it will mean that it is congruent to 1 mod 3. So we can just ignore the second condition here. And how about the fourth condition saying that n is congruent to 1 mod 6? And again, this is not needed, because if it's congruent to 1 mod 2 and mod 3, then it will congruent to 1 mod 6. So in other words, what we need is just say that n is congruent to 1 mod 4 times 9, that is equal to 36. And therefore, n is equal to 36p plus 1. And because n is greater than 1, so the minimum value of n will be equal to 37 when p equals to 1. And this is the answer for this question. Next, so this is slightly different. let this value be n is congruent to 3 mod 4, and n is congruent to 2 mod 3. Likewise, n is congruent to 1 mod 2. The answer for this question is not a very big number. So we can actually list it out, and you see that the possible value from the first condition will be equals to 3, 7, 11, 15, 19, and so on and so forth. And possible answer for the second condition will be equals to 2, 5, 8, 11, 14, and so on and so forth. And the last condition, it just says that n itself is an odd number. So we have 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and so on and so forth. It is not difficult to see that 11 appear in these three conditions, and therefore the answer is equals to 11. But how are we going to do it in more mathematical way without guess and check? So we can actually write n congruent to 1 mod 4, it is actually equals to a negative 1 mod 4. And for n congruent to 2 mod 3, again it is a negative 1 mod 3. Likewise, for the third one, it is congruent to negative 1 mod 2. As mentioned as previous, if n is congruent to negative 1 mod 4, then it will be congruent to negative 1 mod 2. So this is not needed anymore. And therefore, what we need to have is n will congruent to a negative 1, mod 3 and 4, that is mod 12. So it means that n is equals to 12p minus 1. Since n is a natural number, is positive, so the minimum value of n will be equals to 11. And this is the same as what we have just now. And therefore, 11 is the answer for this question. That's all for today's question. I'll see you again next time. Bye bye.